I will say, my son goes to studio.
Don't be scared.
Karen,
I don't
you're
think
live.
I need one of those.
There you go.
You all can hear me, right? Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm Karen, and I want to introduce tonight Amanda Wattler. Amanda has a new position at Pegasus. She's our program coordinator for our adult day services. So I'm really excited to have her with me tonight. She's going to help me write, because I want this to be an interactive time, because we are really here. I'll let you be creative. We're here to tell you a little bit about what's going on at Pegasus. Oh, that is perfect. Yeah. And actually, we're here to get your input and your advice, because we could just kind of go ahead and do what we think everybody wants and then really be wrong. So that's never a good idea. We want to hear from the people that might want our services or that just have some advice for us. So how many of you were here and heard about one of the projects we have going on, our long-term project for housing? Y'all heard that? So there's kind of a phase in between where we're at now with our vocational habilitation program and everything we have going on our property and our housing. And that is to add an educational building on our property. And so we have our wellness gardens, and right now education happens in that garden for the community, specifically geared around healthy growing, how to cook healthy and eat healthy. We see a lot of garden clubs, just a lot of people from the community that really want to know what we're doing, how to use some of the methods we use. And so we want to expand on that, because a lot of times we'll have groups out and there's nowhere to put them, and so they sit under a tent in the rain, you know, not the best environment. So we want to be able to have a building with classrooms where we can bring the community in for this education piece that we feel is important. That will also enhance what we do in our store, and also enable us to do more of the farm to table meals that we like to do on the farm. And that all centers around what our people on the farm do in our vocab program, because they grow the vegetables, they run the store, so it all ties together. But we want to be able to bring the community in and have a spot to do it. So also, if you're going to have a building, we want it to be able to generate some revenue out of that building, so we'd like to put a cafe in the building. So not only do we want to teach people how to use well-grown produce, you know, and feed them, but teach them how to cook. We want to feed them too, which will add to our vocational habilitation program. And then there's kind of this last part that we wanted to do, and that was bring the community in for healthy exercise programs, for art programs, just some broad interests in the community. And we wanted to be able to expand the room that we have on the farm for an additional day program site. So not vocational habilitation, but a day service program where people can come and participate in the community activities, the things going on the farm. We're thinking a lot about the people that are on our property now in our vocab that are aging and not really looking to move into the community. Maybe they've worked in the community already and now they're with us and they're kind of looking for retirement. So that's kind of the overview of what we want to do. But we want to hear from all of you to say, you know, for a day program, what kind of things would you advise us to include in our day programming based on what you heard? And what kind of things would you like to see? So, I know, Becky, you're real involved at the farm. Do you have any thoughts?
Okay, your summer camp program. Okay, it's only for ages up to 18. There was nothing on that list for Eric's age and up. And he likes to do crafts. He likes to do things, and a week of something new and different would be fun for him.
Okay, so expand the summer program.
Yeah, to cover the adults.
Okay, good. That's very, very good.
Isn't the summer program really more geared to typical kids? You're outreaching for...
It's open to anybody, but more typical kids enroll, yes.
Yeah. But maybe if you wanted to limit the typical age, but expand the special age.
Yeah,
Or
we could
just
do that, or
special-
include both,
yeah,
really
just
do a
special
promotion
needs.
to both. Good. Anybody else?
I like to see more introduction to horseback riding, to see if some of the kids that have advanced out of cart riding are ready for on the back of a horse.
Okay, expand horseback riding. Anything else?
I don't know if this even pertains, but my son is very low functioning. I would love to find some activity for the lower functioning kids.
Okay.
And that would maybe be a horse buggy ride where Malachi could ride a horse, but he would love to probably be pulled on a cart or.
Okay. So maybe in the day program, pulling some of our equestrian activities into that as well.
I mean, there's so many fun activities for the kids that are higher functioning, but what is there for the kids that are low functioning? They're just kind of on the sidelines, and
Yeah.
I know there's less things that you can do, but there's still things that can be done that they would enjoy.
Absolutely, that's good. Anybody else?
Longer hours.
Perhaps a cooking class
A cooking class, yes, that's perfect, cooking class.
or a book club?
A book club. Ooh, that's top on my list. I always say I want to do a book club, and we never have a place to do it. So has anybody been in our store? We originally thought that we would have room to have a coffee area and a book club, and that didn't work out because we have filled every spot with groceries. So, yeah, that's perfect. So what kind of longer hours?
Well, I guess, what are your hours?
9 to 2 right now, which is really typical.
Yeah, that's what I'm really looking for, is something that has longer hours, just that would reflect my work schedule.
Okay, longer hours for parents' work schedule. That's good. That's good. And something we don't think of very often.
Movement classes.
What's that?
Movement classes. They've got to move. I don't know if
Yes.
you want to call it exercise, yoga, tai chi.
Yeah.
but movement.
So people always ask us, because we have goats and we have a garden, when are you gonna do goat yoga in the garden? There you go. We have 6, 19, and 44. We always kind of worry about the goats running amok, on the. If we could work that out, we might do that. But yeah, exercise classes, perfect.
When Jose was there, he used to do cooking classes every once in a while.
Rudy, yeah. And he still does those, but again, our space is so limited. You've got to sign up, and there's only 10 that we can fit in the store. So with the addition of our cafe and a commercial kitchen, yes, we would like to expand those cooking classes for the community, and then to involve our people as well. Because we have so many people that come on our property anyhow. They shop in our store, they visit our garden, we have all kind of things happening that we want to expand that, so that rather than taking a van load of people to somewhere so they can stay there as a group and be in the community, we want the community to come in and integrate with our people. So classes for the community where our people can sign up and be involved as well.
when the old director was there, and my mind's drawing a blank. I can't think of her
Carol?
name. Yes, thank you. She had started, and she only had one meeting for parents to get together to talk about the problems and have kind of a advocacy group, and it never took off.
Right, right.
And I'd like to see something.
So advocacy group,
Mhm.
that's good. Very
I
good.
think it needs to go to younger kids. I think when Carol met with Beth and I, and we kind of talked about that.
Have you ever thought of partnering with Mays Valley down the street from you with the restaurant and seeing if you could get your people involved with them and your growing and that type of thing?
We do work with them in
Do you?
some areas, yeah. Yes, but that's a good idea.
Perhaps-
Partnerships are always great.
Okay, go
Perhaps
ahead.
getting manicures?
Manny.
Like have a, yeah, manicures. People come in, you could get, the ladies could get their nails done.
Oh, that's a very good idea. I would like that.
Or a mother-daughter tea.
I
Oh,
like that
Ooh.
idea.
yeah, that's a good idea.
I'd like to have something with a massage.
You still lose teas
Go
there.
yoga and a massage.
Yeah.
Might get a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, is this for you?
Yeah, I think we're all.
Having tea with a mama friend, you do sell the loose leaf teas.
Yes.
Somebody said music therapy.
Yeah.
Oh. That's a very good idea.
I would like to see a once a month dance. You got the barn, have a barn dance,
Oh, yeah. Line dancing?
an old fashioned
Oh,
barn
that's
dance.
an idea.
Oh, yeah. Square dancing. People used to square dance. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
Circulators.
Circulators?
Circulators out of Ravenna.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Mo-
very
most
good,
of the
because we could do that now
Mhm.
and build on that. We
Oh,
don't
yeah.
need the building. That is a good
Ballroom
idea.
dancing is still popular.
Oh, look, nobody responds.
I can do a square, I just can't do a ball.
I do like that. Yeah, if I could get my husband to go, but he steps on my feet a lot. So.
Well, then you have that, right? So
You have that, yeah.
That's the
If I
foot
could only
massage.
teach him. A foot massage. Yeah, you guys have great ideas. This is what we were looking for.
Is property big enough to hike?
20 acres of woods.
You gotta watch for the ticks. They were
Yeah.
bad last year.
They were bad, and the mosquitoes are always terrible back
Yeah.
there. We ride back there, but you know, you kind of go faster when you ride.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it does get full of mosquitoes. These are great ideas.
Drum circle? Drum circle?
Oh, yeah, drum circle. You guys have been awesome. I don't want to take up the whole time, but this is the kind of suggestions we were looking for. So I really appreciate your input, and we'll keep you posted. We're kind of in that final planning stages and getting ready to do a capital campaign for this project, so we'll keep you posted. And thank you very much, Jody and Beth,
As soon as our server kind of gets a minute, she's gonna cut cake and then we're gonna pass it out. So it's time for Dave and Gary.
Becky, when did Jose leave? When did Jose leave?
I don't remember, he retired or something, or he can't have gone from
Well,
Everybody was fine.
No, people didn't take the ball. Okay. Mr. Purple.
Mr. Gary?
Okay. Gary has an agenda, that's a first.
yeah, it keeps me on
Do
track.
you want everybody to sign up?
So y'all know who the ARC is?
I think they
All
thought
right, you guys ready?
they didn't listen.
Wait and let Eric get through
So
there.
should we send it back?
That's because we're all providers, and providers don't listen.
You good? You got it, man?
I think I got it.
You got it? You good?
Okay, we're gonna send this, I need everybody to sign it. If you're new, I just wanna hear, if you're new, I wanna know, I need your email address. But if you guys, I think a
How
lot
much
of
have
you
it?
are just
Huh?
Been here
Ever
before,
try that?
just sign your name.
Yes.
All right.
So David and I had a meeting with the Department of Medicaid just before this, and they had 2 new staff. So we did a little spiel on who the ARC is and who we are. We've been around since 1950. Most of you know who we are, but we're the lead civil rights organization on behalf of people with disabilities, and also the organization that started essentially everything on a local, state, and national level for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They're telling us to be the wide frame. I think that's because of me.
It was because of me. I was trying to mess with her.
So we've been around a long time, and we've got our fingers in just about anything dealing with education, Medicaid, health, the Department of Developmental Disabilities, and the Department of Medicaid. And we sit at the table representing people, children and adults with people with disabilities. And we're going to talk tonight about things that are happening in Columbus that affect your loved ones. And there's lots going on. So I've been with the ARC for, as of September, I will have been with the ARC for 50 years. And I am that old. I joined, you'll know how old I am. I joined the week I turned 18. I was dating a special ed major, and she asked me to attend a dance to support and dance with people that had developmental disabilities. So if you look on my resume, my first assignment with the ARC was to be a male escort. I was much thinner and better looking. I had more hair, but yes, that's my first thing.
A little darker.
A little darker, yes. I had to get a new license this year.
Here I am talking about hair.
Yes, I had to get a new license late last year, and it still said dark brown hair, blue eyes, and the lady would not process my license until I put white or gray. But she let me still be 175 pounds. So
All right. So I'll follow that up with, glad to be here. My name's David Lewis. I'm the Executive Vice President for the ARC of Ohio. Been with the ARC now 13 years, going on 13 years. I have a wide background in technology, so I'm a former network admin, built server systems, and wanted to leverage that to help support people with disabilities in the home and community, and fell in love with what the ARC does and supporting people, and so here I am.
So the first part of this is good news. We worked for the past 2.5 years on getting wages up for people with for the direct service staff that work with our loved ones. We met with the governor's office. We cooperated with other organizations, the county boards, the provider trade associations. And to remind you, Ohio has a 2-year budget that begins every other July and goes 2 years until June 30th. The way the budget worked this year is the legislature approved a 30.8% raise in rates that our providers are paid as of January 1st of this year. And we can pass out, these are just the percentages, but it's the first. You must already pass that one out. Oh, good. Okay.
So when you say that, keep in mind in Ohio we have 2 different types of DD providers. We have independent certified providers and agency certified providers who hire DSPs, direct support professionals, okay? And that's important because an independent provider certified with the state bills directly, gets reimbursed directly from the state. When we talk about a pay increase going in January 1st, remember Medicaid services are reimbursed after the service is delivered. And that's important to know because if I'm an agency provider and I'm submitting billing and I have a, let's say a bi-weekly payroll and I'm paying you on January 1st, let's just say that that's a payday, but I'm paying you for the 2 weeks previously before the rate increase, okay? So you gotta track when the service is delivered and billed for. It's a reimbursement system. A lot of people out there, there's a lot of chatter, well, I didn't get my raise January 1. gotta look at who you're working for and how that pay cycle works,
So if
okay?
you're an independent provider, you get the raise automatically.
Yes.
Becky does a great job here on her Facebook page, and we had a lot of comments that, I just got paid, it's January 5th or whatever, and I don't see my raise. Well, they billed for the last week of December,
Yes.
and, you don't get paid, just because you got your pay in January. That was based on the December raise.
Right.
These were effective on January 1st. Most agencies are not necessarily going to have the cash flow to give the raise until late January. They have to receive the money first. Those of you who have loved ones living in intermediate care facilities, they got their raise on July 1st of last year, but theirs is calculated differently.
They do what's called cost reporting directly to the state and Medicaid, okay? So their system's a little different.
And they got a different kind of a raise, but they also
Yes.
received an increase. The next raise will go into effect on July 1st, and it's about 38% more than what we would have received in December. It's not an additional 8% raise. So by July 1st, all of the waiver providers will have received a 38% raise. That should take our direct support staff up to an average of about $18 an hour, but it's an average. Yeah, Becky.
Can you specifically say it's a 7.2% increase?
Yeah,
Because
well-
you know I'm going to be getting
You gotta,
messages.
you gotta be careful with the math, right? So if
Right,
you
exactly.
take a rate in December and you say January 1, that goes up 30.8%, then you almost have to go backwards in July to the current rate from December and do 38. Because if you start trying to do that math, there's gonna be some differences
As
in
soon as
that.
somebody hears 38% in July, I'm going to be getting hit by.
Yes, it's not 38%
Right.
on top of.
Oh, I get it. I get
Oh, I
it.
know. I'm
I'm just saying what I'm going to
I'm
be
looking at your phone, Becky, and I'm telling you to keep on.
So it really depends. So a lot of our staff, if you're a homemaker personal care provider, you get paid hourly. The rate comes in 15-minute increments.
Yes.
If you're a shared living provider, and remember, that's a lot like being a foster family, you get a daily rate. So those rates are going to be going up from about $130 a day to over $200 a day.
These are averages.
Yeah,
you gotta.
depending on what's called a developmental disability profile and your
ODDP.
function.
Yeah, your
But
ODDP.
everyone's getting an increase. If you're not, let us know. Again, some providers are not going to have the cash flow to make it happen in January.
So let me clarify a
But
little
it
bit.
doesn't always have to be in cash.
Yes, so you were going there, good.
Right.
So you gotta remember, during this process, as we were looking at the shortage of DSPs and 67% of providers not, turning away new business, closing homes, some of those providers, some of the larger providers who had like a foundation, they already bumped some of their wages up. So they might have already been paying somebody 17, 18 bucks an hour. But we made a promise to the people in the legislature that that money somehow would get to the direct care worker, right? So it might not always be in a wage increase, it might be extra benefits and those kind of things. All providers have to document through a survey process to the State Department, and that information gets made public.
At the
So
end of the year.
essentially,
At the end of the year, you're not going to have a public survey
Yes.
in July.
right.
Why?
But that information is going to be public information, so if people are saying, well, I work for ABC Company and I didn't get a raise, number one, my first caution is, well, think about that. Think about the middle managers who have to get raises and those kind of things too. Again, we're talking about an average wage of 18, and the other reason in our DD system that we're getting that is because the county boards pitched in $1 an hour. So if you get, some of you remember the retention bonus, that's gone away because they've taken that dollar and added it to the system, okay? So for those of you out there on Becky's phone, retention bonuses have ended.
So there are a lot of it, people say, oh, well, my budget is, if I want to give my staff more money,
Yes.
but if I do, that means I've got less hours of support. If you look at the bottom of the page, we passed out. If you have an IO waiver, there are 9 funding ranges in the IO waiver. Each of those funding ranges is going up 38%. Actually did on January 1st. If you've got a level 1 or a self, those budgets, the annual budgets, have gone up as of January 1st. So, and I don't have my glasses on. And I never remember the exact amount.
What are you looking for?
Down at the bottom.
All right, so self and level 1 budget limits for an adult are 62,136. Self and level 1 budget limits for a child are 41,424. IO funding ranges, which are tied to the Ohio Developmental Disability Profile, and those cost of doing business categories and all these factors, they just say they go up 38%.
So a child on the level 1 or the self waiver is someone still in school.
Yes, that's important.
Okay? So I can be in school until my 22nd birthday. If I'm still in school, I'm considered a child. But if I leave school and I'm 18, I'm an adult, okay? So there are a number of people on the level 1 and self waiver who have said, I want an IO, I want an IO. You now got $62,000. You're really close to what you would have received on an IO waiver anyway. And it's one budget now. It's not multiple budgets. So if I've got $62,000, I'm an adult, and I've got a lot of flexibility in how I spend that, that's, much better than it was last year. So this is all good. We have not stopped fighting for increases. We've already begun meeting with other stakeholders about a raise in the next budget cycle. We had asked for an average of $20 an hour and got 18. But my dad was a union member, never did they ever get a 38% raise.
Right.
So we are still gonna be put by the next budget cycle, I know we're gonna be asking for more than 20. Because if I work for the state of Ohio in a state developmental center, I'm already starting at over $20 an hour, plus a state pension, plus state benefits. We're going to be giving our staff 18 with no benefits, so we still have a long way to go.
I also want to remind people, and this is not really a happy note, but during the process of the budget negotiations and those process steps, sorry, I keep stepping out of frame on you, I'm sorry. 44% of our direct care staff are actually receiving Medicaid benefits. So there's this line too where we talk about like, okay, how much money's enough, but if I give somebody a raise, does it kick them off their benefits? So, as a system, we're always trying to negotiate and figure out where that line is. We want people to be paid fairly and appropriately, and this is hard work. So it's really hard work. During the process of us going around talking about this, we had a few county board SSA say, well, I'm going to quit my job here and go become an independent because it pays more. That's fine. You have a right to do what you want to do, but I would say that's a totally different job. So just be careful what you're getting yourself into there.
Right. So what we're passing out now is a list of all the DD waivers plus the home care waiver, which is administered by the Department of Medicaid through Job and Family Services. And it lists all the services that you can get plus the budget. And we're going to talk about the services that have changed as of January 1st. But any questions on the budget and the raises? They will have to go to direct support if the agents in some form.
Yes.
So your agency may have given it already because they had the cash flow, or they may decide to give it in benefits. But every agency will have to show at the end of the year what they did with the money. And we will out the ones that have not provided it.
So remember, real quick, sorry,
Yeah,
and we'll
go
get
ahead.
in.
Yeah.
So remember why some of this is so challenging in these rates. You've got to remember the state, they set that Medicaid rate. So again, I'm a provider, I can only bill what that rate is. A lot of chatter out there, ABC companies crappy, not paying enough, and there could be some validity to that also. But think about, what the state, and that's why we hammered at the legislature, Medicaid and them, to increase these rates. Yes, question.
Okay, so
if this pertains to anybody else. So my daughter has an IO waiver, so we have shared living.
Okay.
And I'm hired through an agency.
Okay.
So then the raise, I understand, like you said, could be benefits, you know, like a day off or
Right.
Insurance or whatever.
Right.
I don't receive any of that because I
You're
work
a
7 days a week.
contractor, yeah.
So, like, if they don't give me the whole raise, I'm not benefiting from what they're doing for their
Right.
employees in the house. So,
So you work through an agency as a shared
Yes.
living provider, shop
Yes.
around.
okay.
Yeah.
So much of it, remember, I grew up as a Republican. This is a Republican-controlled legislature. It's based on a business model, that if you don't like Walmart, you go to Target.
I guess
And if
my
Walmart
question
didn't give me a raise, I go to Target.
Like, if I
That's-
wanted to go ask them about it, cause, you know, they're not giving me anything in black and white, what the raise was, what they're keeping, what they're giving me. If I go ask, I feel like I'm being greedy.
So email, our cards are over here. Email us. We can tell you exactly what your agency is receiving.
Okay.
So in shared living, if you work for an agency, there is an agent, for all of us, there's an agency rate because agencies are expected to do more. They have to abide, they have to audit, they have to do all of that. And then there's an independent provider rate. For shared living, there's about a 15% difference between what an agency is paid and what an independent provider is paid. I would think they are obligated to tell you what percentage, not of the independent, but what is the percentage of the agency. We know of some agencies that are charging 50% of whatever they receive.
Okay.
We, you know,
I guess I
it's
kind of figured what I was making before the raise, that it would be reasonable to think it would be 30% more than that, because
Right,
they were
right.
already keeping part of it.
right.
And it's not.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
so it's easy to find out, but we'll show you where it's actually public
There's-
knowledge.
there's a
whatever you
chart.
get.
Yeah.
There's a
I
chart.
thought I had the chart and I've lost it.
Yeah, if
actually
you
go to the
email
Ohio
me, I'll
Department
send you
of
the
Developmental
chart.
Disabilities and click on rules.
You
Click
ready
on
for the
rules in
rule number?
effect.
What's
Well,
that?
You ready for the
both
rule
know
number?
rule nu-
Yeah.
That's all right, we'll.
5123-9-33.
5123.
-9-33, that's the shared living rule, and the appendix to those rules will have the rates.
But if you just email me, I can email you.
I'm
He
in them all the
remembers
time.
numbers,
If you
I lose
call
my
me,
kid
Brenda, I can help you
number all
figure
the
the
time,
math.
so.
Just call me and I'll help you figure the math.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll show you exactly how to
So-
do the math.
Okay, because it's a
You want
really
the
small
agenda too,
agency.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, nurses, and I forgot to tell you this, on the back of that first sheet, nurses are also getting an increase, their increase is different. We put the nurses' rate increase for nurses that are paid for by the Medicaid card and nurses that are paid through the waiver. Their rate increase is not the same. I mean, nurses could be making a significant more in a hospital setting, but they were also the highest paid in our system. But they also received a raise. So there, as
Nurses' aides too, right?
nurses' aides as
Yeah,
well.
there's two on that, yeah.
So we've also not done things in the DD system that we were probably supposed to do for years. One of those things, and I reported to this the last time, the Ohio Supreme Court over 10 years ago said that if you're a guardian, you need to get permission to be paid. Now, if I'm a guardian on the Medicaid side, so there's something called the home care waiver, which is managed by Medicaid. Guardians over there cannot be paid. But years ago, parents on the developmental disability side said, you know, it's kind of common sense and reasonable that I be allowed to be guardian and to be paid. So on the DD side, the level 1, the self, and the IO, you can be a guardian and a provider, but you have to have permission from the judge to do that. So, where is it? I thought I put these in order, Jody, but, you know, obviously I did not. Okay, so we've been telling people to get prepared for this.
Yes.
County staff should be asking you if you're, so it only works if you're a family member, a guardian, and a provider. If you're not related, you can't be a guardian and a provider. because there's a conflict of interest. Guardians are choosing who provides services. But in Ohio, it's not the same in Michigan or Pennsylvania or Indiana. In Ohio, on a developmental disability waiver, you can be a guardian, and a guardian is someone, you're a guardian of someone 18 and over. So this doesn't apply to children. You can be a guardian and a provider and a family member, but you have to have written permission from the local judge to do it. And the county boards will be monitoring that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Every judge is doing it different. The more rural your county is, the chances are that your judge is gonna write you a little note. If you're in Cleveland, they got a form, you might have to go in front of the judge, have a court here.
That just did hers.
I just did mine, and Stark County Board, my SSA came, and somebody else from the county boards, there's two people,
Okay.
came with me, and we had a formal hearing.
It was very easy.
Yeah, it was, and they approved it,
Yeah.
but I don't think they're approving everybody.
No, but it depends, and yeah.
I think it has to do with what the angel that came out to the house said,
Mhm.
and I got a superior, right?
Yeah.
Because you can see what you get. But I do believe that these judges are making decisions, not
Right.
just giving it
Well-
to everybody.
Well, I think even when we talk about services people receive, and it's hard, because let's say we're in this family environment, right? We're sharing stories about our loved ones. The way the funding is supposed to work is it's supposed to be individual assessed need, right? So when people get together and say, well, I don't understand why Joe down the street's getting more services or more money, you gotta hear that, but at the same time, think about why that could be.
And this rule applies to independent providers and family members that work through an agency.
Yes.
There's been some misunderstanding among some counties, but it applies to any guardian who's a family member and who is getting paid. The biggest reason, I told Beth, you can't find anyone. There isn't anyone else to do it, Judge. And you trusted me enough to be the guardian, trust me enough to do this. Some judges are asking for every bit of income coming into the family. Then you know they can do that. Just show it to them. You know, it's procedural. They're allowed to do that. There is no appeal process above that. If the judge says you can't do it, you can't do it.
They're the superior guardian.
Yeah. In fact, the way it works is you're the guardian of the person, and the judge is what's called the superior guardian.
Yes.
They can veto anything you've said. They don't get involved like that, but they're allowed to if they want to.
How did you do that? Did you request, what did you do to start doing?
Beth, did they reach out to you, or?
No, I had to. I had to
Okay.
write a letter saying that I was Alyssa's guardian, and I was already a independent provider through the ARC. I'm with the ARC of Stark County, or ARC of Ohio. Anyhow, and then I got a hearing, a date. They sent me a date, and then my SSA came, but I was surprised, somebody else from the county boards came also.
So back up a second. How did you know to get to that point? Did we tell you?
Oh,
Did
yeah, you guys said it was a lot.
Reach out to them?
Yeah.
And
They
then
don't, what do you, no,
Well,
I
that's what
wrote,
we
I think
passed
that's what
out.
you're trying
I
to
Judges
wrote
may
the
not know
letter
they're supposed to do.
I wrote to, and I think I took it down there. I think I actually
Okay.
went down there and just handed it,
Right.
saying that I needed a court date. And then they,
Ask for a portion?
you
But you-
have to have a hearing.
You took the initiative, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, but they do,
Okay.
it's Stark County,
Yeah. That's
you're
what I'm
gonna
trying
have
to-
another hearing.
Okay,
Right.
that's what I'm wondering, it's like, is he saying that you just write a note, it's like, did you
Right.
ask for a hearing?
No, they actually are doing it.
And
Stark
keep-
County is doing
Yeah, keep in
hearings.
mind, it could vary depending upon what county you're in, right? So I think when Gary made that statement, you know, he might be talking about, you know,
So
Meg
Stark
County or
says-
something. and-
All the counties are different.
Yes.
If they read through this briefly, they're gonna say, well, guardians aren't allowed to be, but it says unless otherwise approved, which means the judge approves it. Or there's already an exemption and permission on a state level. But The reason they had not been doing this is the Ohio Supreme Court made a decision without talking to the local judges. And they didn't make it a Department of Developmental Disability rule, so the county boards didn't feel an obligation to enforce it.
Do you, have to, I am not her provider yet, so
Okay.
it be for her provider?
Yeah, go just get it done.
You
and
should
it'll
be prepared,
easy.
yes.
You're not gonna have a problem. And the vast majority of judges are just,
Yeah.
some
But-
have a stamp. You
but-
know, it's that,
But
it's
I
become
think
that
some of the
informal.
SSAs, if they feel like you're really not doing a good job, I think they've been putting little notes in.
Yeah.
So not to,
Well, that would be important to know, yeah, when you're with
if,
your
you know, if an
SSA and the
SSA
team.
walks into your house and it smells like pot, like just reeks of marijuana, and it's filthy and stuff, they're gonna say,
Right.
I don't think this person should be
There's,
the person's guardian, right, or their provider, because
Yeah.
the house, and honestly, that's what they're there for, because the ARC isn't allowed to do it anymore. And,
oh, you're bringing something back from the.
no, we've been talking to people, we've even said that we feel like there still needs to be quality assurance,
Yeah, we used
So
to
I want to
have.
clarify something, sorry.
yeah.
You're technically not an independent provider when you said that through the ARC. You're a contractor.
I am,
Yeah.
you're
through
right,
the ARC of Ohio. Independent provider is totally different.
but I
What
still,
she's referring to is we used to have a contract in a number of counties where we could go into group homes.
Really?
Yeah.
We used to do quality assurance, quality assessment.
And we'd have teams of parents
Yeah.
or advocates just show up, and we had permission to just monitor.
And what happens
So,
now?
They changed the rules on a.
Gary
on a
was
state
sick.
level. Yeah, I fell, well,
That's really how they
I
did it.
was wearing dress shoes, and it was in January. It was like 15 years ago. I had to speak to a parent group in Cincinnati. I was off, what was that? What is this, 75? I was off at 77, whatever the interstate is. And I thought, I need to stop, let a rest stop before I speak to these families. And I had dress shoes on, and I slipped on a ramp, and I smashed, I'm in a suit. I smashed my shoulder, my upper arm, had to call an ambulance, and I was like really in bad shape, and I was really out of commission for months, and some of the rules changed.
Oh.
And at that point, I was the only employee of the ARC of Ohio, so yeah, and Beth was on the board. She freaked out on the director of the department. I got to tell you, you got a good advocate here. They stopped inviting us to meetings because, you know, they thought, well, you know, Gary can't come.
Yeah.
It was like, so it was
So
over.
they took that away, and it was a good thing that Margaret would go into people's homes and businesses and talk to the clients, and the ARC kind of watched how our individuals were living or working, and then it stopped, and the county boards kind of policed themselves. But we still police them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you always have a right to know what's going on with your loved one, right?
Right.
Whether they're in a day service program or
So-
getting services in the community, so yeah.
So over the years, we've always had loved ones on waivers or living in programs who had to go into the hospital. And in the past, most of us would stay in the hospital with our loved one, and especially if I was on a waiver, the county board would suspend the waiver. Because the thinking was,
Double
you
billing.
can't duplicate services. You can't be paid for the waiver at the same time you're in the hospital. And then we've had the pandemic for 3 years, and lots of our loved ones were in the hospital. So the rules were changed. Thank goodness, on January 1, a new rule went into effect that if I'm an independent provider or an agency, and this applies to all, it's just not family members, and I have to go into the hospital, my staff can go with me if it's needed for me to have someone. Is Eric still here? I was going to ask
Yeah, he's
permission
right
to
here.
use his.
Yeah,
He's right.
go
Eric,
ahead.
can I use you as an example for something? Okay, so Eric is a really friendly guy, and he has to go to the hospital sometimes, and Eric likes to visit people down the hallway. And his mom has typically, I should ask your permission too,
Sure, go ahead.
typically has to be there because Eric is a social butterfly, as he calls himself. And in the past, she would not be allowed to be paid if she was sitting beside Eric in the hospital. This new rule allows her to be paid. There are limits, and it's not that, like when Becky has to sleep in the chair, she's not going to get paid. But if she has to be there to do non-nursing things, like keep Eric from running down the hallway, or, can I use Ryan as an
Yeah,
example?
they wouldn't even go in the room without.
No. So can I tell what happened to Ryan? Ryan in Cleveland, so you have to approach him in a certain way, and if you don't, he put the nurse in the emergency room because if the staff had been allowed to be with him, and thank you for letting me use you, that wouldn't have happened. So now you have to, if your loved one is on a waiver in a program, you do have to write that major unusual incident report to let the county know that they're in the hospital. And it's an acute hospital.
Acute care hospital, yes, thank you.
Okay, so this is not a step down or a rehab program. If you're admitted to the hospital, you've always been allowed to get paid if you're in the emergency room, kind of thing. But if you're admitted to the hospital, your staff can be paid. And there are limits on how often and how long, but you can be paid, okay? But let the county know, and you've always had to let the county know.
So, real quick, one clarification, it's not officially a new rule. It's the rules for those services have been modified to allow that to happen.
Right. We were able to prove to the federal government that what Becky does
It's
is
way
different
than-
from what the nurse does. And you can have, like, I can ride in a car and my provider can get paid for mileage. At the same time, my provider gets paid to drive. It's the same kind of thing. They're two different services.
When Alyssa was in the hospital, we were changing her sheets, we were doing,
Those are
and
the
they
things.
suspended her waiver, right? It was,
Well, oftentimes what happened, I think that was maybe during a transition period
Yeah.
too, and we have, so when we see that, if we're certified for services for her, we would then reach out to the county and say, hey, we know our staff, in this case you, is providing services to Alyssa.
Oh,
You
yeah,
gotta
we're
go back in
doing-
and authorize that.
So if there are questions from a county level, call us, we can intervene. We helped a family that sadly was, this is not going to apply to an intermediate care facility, but it did to someone living at home that had to have a hospice nurse coming in. It was the end of life for this individual. The Department of DD said this applies there too. That the hospice nurse is not doing homemaker personal care. The hospice nurse is doing something else, so it's okay.
Okay, Becky.
The one problem though, when I stayed in the hospital with Eric, the nurses thought I was there to do everything for him.
Yeah.
That was the
That can
issue.
get- Yes, it can get
That was a
confusing.
big issue because he doesn't know how to call. He can't use the call button.
Right.
You can tell him one time when you leave the room, he doesn't remember.
Yeah, I
again.
mean, there's a line
Right.
there, right? Like,
But-
they think they're gonna count on you now for
Yeah,
things
so-
they should be doing.
You're not supposed to be putting catheters in. You're not supposed to be monitoring the
Yeah,
drip.
I mean, I had to
That's up
unplug
to
his
the-
IV. I had to get
Yeah.
him to go to the bathroom. I had to,
Yeah.
you know, all.
Go ahead.
What if you're in a group home? Gretchen was in the hospital for 3 weeks and I was there 24/7.
Okay, so
The
you're,
group home
Richard
staff.
came in and let me go home and take a shower.
Yeah, the group home staff can be
They can
paid.
be paid now?
Yeah.
Go in and-
Right, yeah, they can be paid. But again, the group home has to let the county know it's a major unusual incident. So a lot of times I'm in the hospital for 3 weeks and then I go to a step-down program for a week. It doesn't cover the step-down. It has to be acute hospitalization.
It'd be nice to have extra help.
Right.
okay, so let me add something real quick before you start up again. So, what's really important about this stuff, guys, is we need to recognize the stuff that you do every day. So some of these rule changes and those things happen because you guys are writing letters and you're calling senators and legislators and you're coming to provide testimony. That's really important because your stories, you're living this every day.
Both ways.
You have to share those stories.
Back and forth.
Sometimes that's really difficult, right? So But you gotta keep fighting, because we're always fighting for incremental changes.
Okay, so, and I'm sorry, this is real fast because there is lots of stuff. Call us. We'll help. So there's a service, if you have an IO waiver, called the shared living. Any of you, I know some of you provide shared living. It's only available to people on the IO waiver that are 18 and over. So the old rule said, if I'm on an IO waiver, I'm at least 18 years old, and I live with my provider.
No, I can't have it.
And my provider is paid more, at least 20% of whatever time I'm allocated. So if you have an adult son that's living with you and you're his provider, this is just an example, the county authorized 100 hours a week. And you provided 19 of those hours, you'd be paid hourly as a homemaker personal care provider. If you provided 21 of the 100 hours prior to January 1st, you had to be shared living, which means the county would pay you a daily rate. And the old rule said, and you can't get any help. You know, you're the only staff person, you could do it maybe 5 days a week instead of 7, but have at it. You're gonna get paid a daily rate and that's it. So the pandemic hit and workshops were closed and schools were closed and people didn't have a break. So we got permission to have someone come in to give you a break. Okay? And the pandemic ended and the permission ended to do that. We did a lot of negotiations with the county boards and the department. And we said, first of all, not everyone should be paid a daily rate. Because some people living at home with their family need 2 staff. And they need 2 staff because of behaviors or lifting, or for a lot of different reasons, they need 2 staff. Or there are some people currently in shared living where they need eyes on 24 hours a day. No one needs to be sleeping in this house. Someone has to be there. And there are some people we've already identified that have complex needs. I mean, they're tube fed. They've got all of these needs. This shared living rule shouldn't apply. And there are people that just have really significant behaviors, and they shouldn't be required. So Dave and I, we tried to negotiate something with the county boards, and we couldn't. So I've always believed if you can't get around something, you go over it, or damn it, you go through it. So we decided to go through it. And we said that there should be some exemptions to this rule, that not everyone should have to be paid a daily rate. So the new rule as of January 1st says, if I'm in shared living and I need 2 staff, I can be exempted from shared living and can be paid on an hourly basis. And if I'm paid hourly and I need 2 people, I get 2 people. You know, if I have complex care needs, if I need to be lifted, if I have behavioral needs, I can be exempted from the shared living rule and be a homemaker personal care provider. Okay?
I didn't catch when you started at the beginning, but did you guys understand shared living is only on the IO waiver and it's for adults? Did you get that?
Right. So we've known over the years that many families were forced into shared living.
Yes.
Because they couldn't find providers, and they were forced into being alone. Yeah, and forced into a daily rate. This is an exemption. You still have a finite budget. So parents are saying, if I switch from shared living to homemaker personal care, how many hours will I be paid? Based on your budget and your negotiating skills. It's, you know, so it's a decision. Yeah, go ahead.
What about these counties that are limiting parents to 40 hours a week?
what we found is some counties are saying you can switch, you have that right based on this rule, but you're only getting 40 hours. Sometimes that's based on the budget. If I've only got X amount of dollars, it doesn't pay for 60 hours. It only pays for 40. You know, it's based on that budget, and we'll get to how we're hoping to change that. But yeah, sometimes you're being 40 hours. Or if you work for an agency, agencies don't get paid overtime. So if you work for an agency, it's 40 hours usually. Sometimes it's more, but because agencies don't get paid overtime, they're losing money in time they have to pay, time and a half to someone. So there are exemptions. And then we said, okay, shared living, I'm okay with that, but I need a break. I need a break. So a new service category was added January 1st called residential respite. There are limits on it, but when we think of respite care, we usually think of sending our kids to camp to give a break. This is to give me a break in my own home, and someone can come into my home under residential respite to give me a break so I can just go get my hair done. Or it could be someone taking my kid out somewhere else to give me a break. It's not an extra set of hands. It's just to give you a break, even if it's I'm going to my room and I'm taking a nap, okay? It can be 15 minutes at a time, or it could be a daily rate. What we're finding is a number of counties are saying, okay, Dave's gonna be a shared living provider Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and residential respite Tuesdays and Thursdays. It pays about the same as a homemaker personal care. Work it out. If you're not able to work it out, again, call us.
The reason there are options between billing a daily on residential respite and an hourly is because you can use daily if that shared living provider does not bill on the same day. But if the shared living provider bills on the same day, you have to bill in the 15-minute or hourly rate.
Yeah, I'm doing that, right?
Okay.
I'm doing that, and so 2 days a week, I tell them what days I'm learning. You have to tell them, I want you to bill Tuesday and Wednesday, say, for residential respite.
There you go.
And then if they show up, then they'll bill HPC and I don't bill that day.
Right.
Right?
Yes, there's.
But you're hoping that the agency's listening to you, because if they don't bill residential respite on the days I bill, there's gonna be a problem.
Right. There is, but you also, again, you should be able to see what's authorized or talk to your SSA about what they're billing too.
So listen, it's 13 hours a week of residential respite.
Got you. I'm just saying, if you ever have a question in your head as a
Well,
parent.
I tell the agency, I text them. So I'm with the ARC, right?
Yeah.
So you guys have been nice enough to say you're supposed to log in within 2 days, right? But I'm not always sure what the agency's up to, and so I'm trying to keep it, so I can see a problem, you know. So last week, they only showed up 2 days. So I billed the whole week, and hopefully they billed.
You're right, but ultimately somebody's gonna look at that authorization and what units have been billed or days have been billed. So, and I say this all the time to families or whoever will listen to me, people's lives don't go according to plan, right?
No.
Even when we talk about rule, I look at a rule and it makes sense on paper. If the provider doesn't show up, then the family's scrambling, trying to find another provider or figure out what to do, and it's hard.
We just canceled.
But you always have a right to see what is being authorized under and billed for under Alyssa's plan.
So, and we don't have a lot of time tonight, but
that my code
we put,
to stop talking?
no, that's all right. We put, the details are on this, but so I'm the shared living provider. My wife cannot be the residential respite provider. The same, if the person lives in your home, they can't be the person to give you the paid break. But your neighbor could, your older son could who doesn't live here, your daughter who doesn't live here can be. And the same agency is not allowed to provide shared living and residential respite. They have to be two separate agencies. We're an agency and an independent. Okay? We're working on, this is a month old. So a lot of people don't understand it yet. Call us again. There are people within the state who have been extremely helpful at calling county boards and educating them. And occasionally, Dave and I would call a county board and, as nicely as possible, educate.
Have they got the billing corrected because it wasn't recognizing the billing code for respite care?
There you go.
Have they fixed
They're
it yet?
still having challenges. So residential respite doesn't have, so if I'm a homemaker personal care provider, I have to clock in with an EVV, electronic visit verification. I should have to do that with residential respite, but the technology hasn't caught up yet. So if you're doing residential respite, you don't have to clock in on EVV, all right? You do probably have to clock in if you're working for an agency so they know when you worked. Yeah.
Do you want to touch base at all on the changes in EVV coming on, like if you live with, I don't know if you want to even go there.
Let me do one thing and then I'll go there. Okay, so the other thing with residential respite is they forgot that I could be a shared living provider for several people. The residential respite did not say anything about a group rate. They have just submitted an amendment to the residential respite rule that is a month old, adding a group rate. But right now, so Becky and I know someone that has 3 or 4 people living in her home. Today it's one-on-one. If I go in to provide residential respite and I'm serving 3 people at the same time, it's 3 one-on-ones. And I also can take someone out to the zoo for residential respite and have the other people still in the home. So electronic visit verification is something that was set up by Congress a number of years ago because they had testimony that there was rampant Medicaid fraud, that people were not, it was a kind of, yeah, I worked it, here's my bill, when they were receiving testimony that people weren't showing up and they were still billing. So Congress passed a law to create something called electronic visit verification. It's supposed to work like an electronic time clock. Like I'm going into the factory and punching in. It's got a lot of problems. So EVV has never worked with billing. It's been 4 years, and my electronic visit verification, I do clock in, but it has nothing to do with billing at this point. Eventually it will. So Medicaid has been keeping track. But barely over half the providers are using electronic visit verification because there's not been a lot of enforcement. Use it, but they have.
Ultimately, it will affect people's claims. So if I do not have matching EVV data for my documentation hours, it will spit that claim out. Ultimately, it's going to do that.
It doesn't apply.
You don't do shared?
If you have a daily rate, if I'm being paid for the whole day, it doesn't apply. But if I'm only providing like 3 hours of paid service, yeah. They started it out with nurses because they work usually in 2-hour increments. But it applies to any service that is paid on a 15-minute rate or an hourly rate. Doesn't apply for day services because they go for a whole day. It will eventually apply billing-wise to transportation, and yes, it will have a GPS in it to determine, you told me you went to Target from your house. That's not what EVV says. You charged us for 20 miles, and we know you only went 5. So we have problems with privacy, but you are being paid. And you're being paid 60% with federal tax dollars.
Yes.
So there's some rationale to it, but we've always been a trust kind of system. And I don't believe it was our system that was doing the fraud. It was the other systems. Because our system especially, we're mostly family, and though we may have clocked out, I'm still working. You know, I still got to get up.
It's always been a difficult challenge.
So every day I'm reading online, the computer system doesn't match up. This doesn't work. The whole system was that nobody's answering my phone call. Wouldn't an ankle monitor be better?
Yep. You should have seen. I used to go to all the meetings. I stopped going because I just got too angry. Ohio was the first one to do it. Ohio has this history of, we're going to be first to create this. So there was legislation saying, we will hire this company to do this. And sometimes this company just doesn't do a great job. Independent providers must use something called SAN data. Agencies have an option of using other, and it looks like an old cell phone.
Yes.
It's a time clock. It's old technology and it doesn't work. And if I live south of Canton, the farther south I live, the less likelihood it's going to work.
True, but you got a number to call to.
Right. So
you can call in.
There are problems, but eventually it'll be tied to billing. A proposed rule came out that as of July 1st, if I live with the person I support, I won't have to use it. But the way we're reading it is you have to ask for permission not to use it. But we haven't, from the Department of Medicaid, but we don't know how that's supposed to work yet. We just know that they've said as of July 1st.
They'll get thousands of letters.
So we'll let you know as soon as we know how to do that. Okay. So
I have a question.
Yes.
I answered it, but I think I answered it correctly. So they said, where can you find a residential respite provider? And I told them it's an HPC provider, but they bill residential respite on days.
They have to be certified.
Okay,
So for
all right,
those
there you go.
So for those providers who provided those services during Appendix K, which was the flexibilities the government allowed us, they were automatically grandfathered in to provide that service and bill for it. But if you want to start doing that now, you have to get that added to your certification, and they were waiving the fee for that up until April.
Right. So what they did is they amended the respite care rule.
Yes.
To make it more flexible. So when you think of respite, my kid has to go to that house on the other side of town. It now says residential respite, which is the new term, can be an independent provider that takes my kid to their house for the day, or takes them to the zoo for the day, or we hear over and over again, and it came up in the discussion with Pegasus Farms. There's no recreation. There's no socialization. A residential respite provider to give you a break can take the person bowling. It's one-on-one. You're going out and you figure out how to pay for bowling. You know, it's giving you, the provider, a break, but it could be interpreted to it's giving you, mom, who's not even the provider, a break. It's a respite for you to get out. It's not going to camp. That's another service category. It's just, and it's available in all three of the waivers. Okay? It's called residential respite. There aren't a lot of providers right now, but part of your SSA's job is to help you find a residential respite provider.
We're going to go away for a few days, and General Brooks taking Alyssa.
And it doesn't eliminate the other kinds. I can still go to General Brook if I need respite. I can still go to a licensed group home if they've got a bed. It didn't eliminate any of those. It just gave other options. This is the last major service change. Dave and I were meeting for 2 days about this with our national staff and people from other states. Ohio, again, is the first to majorly implement this. Every state is going to do this. We can't find providers. We can't find them. In Ohio, parents and family members of adults have always been allowed to be a paid provider. But during the pandemic, when schools were closed, we had permission to pay parents of children under 18. They had to work for an agency, and they had to meet all the training and clearance requirements as everyone else. So even though my kid was 10, you have to have a criminal background check, You gotta go through the same training. If something happens, I gotta file an incident report, all the same requirements. But that permission ended on December 31st. It worked so well, the Department of Medicaid, not the Department of DD, wrote a rule that said, under certain circumstances, we're gonna allow not necessarily always parents of minors, but all legally responsible people to be paid. Can I use my example?
No.
No? It's your birthday, I'm gonna do. So,
I knew he was going to anyway. That's why I said no.
I'm considered a senior citizen. What if I have dementia and I qualify for Medicaid? If I don't have a lot of income and resources, I'm gonna qualify for something called the passport waiver to keep me out of a nursing home. On December 31st, if Dave and I were married, Dave would not be allowed to be paid, because as my spouse, he's legally responsible to take care of me. If I divorced him, he could be paid.
It's always been really strange in the.
So, but we're a family values, we believe in marriage and the sanctity of marriage, but on December 31st, your spouse could not be paid.
Right.
And senior citizens can't find staff either.
But if you got divorced, your Social Security would go up.
Yes, your Social Security would go up and your
There's
spouse
all
could
kinds
get
of-
paid.
Yeah, there's other.
Yeah, so what the Department of Medicaid said is.
Are you advocating
it
for
has
divorce?
worked, and we, actually, to be honest, we've been fighting for this for 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as it came out, we were like in the Department of Medicaid's ear and the Department of DD that, yeah, we want to continue. And they liked the idea so much, they expanded it to all waivers, that all legally responsible people, that's spouses and parents of minor children in all waivers, and nurses through the Medicaid card. Okay, so nurses through the Medicaid card can be mom now, if mom's a nurse and certified.
But you have to have a waiver.
Right. So, because we are a very conservative state, they developed a process. They gave permission for it to happen, but they said, we're only gonna let it happen as a last resort. So you have to go through the process. First, you have to have a waiver.
Yeah.
It doesn't apply to people who don't have waivers, unless I just need a nurse and I'm using my Medicaid card. You have to have a waiver in our system, and you have to look for another provider. And you have to be able to prove we can't find anyone else. Therefore, I can be paid to support, to implement my ISP. So that's important too. You're not being paid to be a parent. You're being paid to implement the goals in the ISP. Okay? So that's very different. And it only applies if I meet this instrument, which is called an extraordinary care instrument. Our problem is it's the same instrument for the old person as it is for the person with Down syndrome on a waiver. Okay? It's like, we're real different from that 80-year-old lady, you know? So you have to score a 3 in 3 categories. If you're a child, the scoring has to be done in person. Those of you who have gone through other assessments, the SSA sitting at her desk filling it out, this has to be done in person. And it has to be done with the parent and the child together in the home, okay? And we've been doing training for SSAs. My advice to the SSAs is fill it out and get the parent to sign it, that they agree that these are the correct answers to these questions. Our advice is always, in our system, it's based on what you can't do and don't have. This is not a time to shine. If your kid can't do something, imagine you're not there. If he hasn't pulled his pants up in 16 years, he's not going to the bathroom by himself. If he doesn't know where the toothbrush is, he's not brushing his teeth by himself. If you have to remind him to take a shower, he's not taking a shower independently. So read through it and help your friends that have kids under 18. the younger you are, the less likely you're gonna qualify. We gotta do a lot of stuff for 5-year-olds, whether they have a disability or not. But if I'm 16 or 17, I should be able to do a lot of this stuff, okay? They're gonna do this assessment. As a backup, that parent, if they determine if you're eligible, has to work for an agency, and you're not allowed to work more than 40 hours a week for that agency. And it's 40 hours per child. So dad can't work 40 and mom 40. It's together they work 40. But, and I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you, but if I've got a child that's 10, my wife and I can only work 40 hours. But I've got another son that's 18. I work 40, and my adult son who lives in the same house can work the additional hours that are authorized. Does that make sense? So it doesn't eliminate the total number of hours you're authorized. It's just if you're a parent of a minor child, you're limited to 40 hours. The other thing that is required in this is that, and this is where we're not sure how they're going to enforce this, the county has to monitor this monthly. They've got to at least contact you every month by phone or some way to see if everything is going okay. And they've got to do a face-to-face visit with the parent and the child every other month. So when kids in school, I'm at work, that means my SSA has to come to my house at night every other month. This is going to be a big challenge, and it's not just our SSAs. It's the Area Agency on Aging has to do the same thing with senior citizens, and CareSource has to do the same thing with people on the home care waiver, and they don't have the staff to be able to do that, especially for kids in the evening.
So there's going to be some bumps in the road.
Yeah, this is a brand new service. Again, call us if you think you're getting the runaround. Yeah.
Okay, on the searching for a provider for your child. Okay, I did CPR for this girl, so I know her personally. Her SSA is not letting her see the ad that they put out for her child.
Call us, or you know who to call at a state level
Okay.
too. We're intervening a lot. The rule says it has to be a willing and able.
Yes.
We said it should be a willing and qualified provider that I have to choose. So some examples are, we have a family that is Muslim. For their daughter, they by religion cannot have a male come in and change their daughter. You know, for modesty reasons. We have Jewish kosher families who cannot allow a non-kosher person to be preparing food for their child. We have an incident where we have a young woman that needs to lie on the floor to take the kind of medication she takes, and she was sent a 400-pound woman that can't get down on the floor. So we're dealing with the state on an individual basis that, well, for me, I'm allergic to smoke. I don't care if you're not smoking in my house. If you smell like smoke, you're not coming into my house to help me with my kid. Or if your child has a service animal and they send you a staff person who's allergic to dogs, there are other reasons why. So we're testing the system. Okay.
Here's a question. Can
Yes.
a respite rate add the behavior rate to base pay? Can a okay.
Not now, but because the rule is open, people should be sending in comments to Becky Phillips, who is in charge of writing. She helps organize the comments. She doesn't write the rules, but this is the time to comment that the residential respite rate should have longevity add-on, behavior add-on, complex care add-on, and the comment should be you need to add the add-ons to the rate.
So based on comments, she drafts the rule, and then it gets sent out for public comment and additional changes.
This is the time to suggest that.
So
let me be clear on something and why it wasn't initially added.
Okay.
Because when you look at that rate, it was based on the cost of doing business category 8, which is the highest for that provider, so it's already up there as a pretty high rate. That was the
Okay.
logic. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
So anyone
was
that
just
wants
here.
that to happen, email us, and we'll give you the contact information to comment on residential respite.
Yeah.
And the department has an opportunity right now, because they've opened the rule, to change how people are paid.
So,
Right.
Anytime a rule's
Yeah.
open.
So because your daughter
That's when
has
they wanna make
complex
changes.
care needs,
right.
the provider should get additional money to come in under
Yes.
residential respite. Right now, they get the base rate.
So is the residential respite rate lower than the HPC rate?
It's the same.
Okay.
But if I am a homemaker personal care provider supporting someone with complex needs, I get an extra $3 and something an hour. With residential respite, I don't.
But it's,
Yeah.
again, the logic behind it was based on the highest cost of doing business category, so that rate's up higher already.
So the days they bill residential respite, they wouldn't get the add-on, but the days they bill HPC, they get the add-on.
Right, yes.
As it is now.
Yes,
As
yes,
it is now.
right.
So we need to.
Are you confused? I know, it's hard to
So,
lie. I heard you say that.
So, what I'm
It's okay.
saying is
It takes-
because of what
Yes.
we're doing with shared living, doing the residential respite and the HPC, if we want the extra help, we almost need to make that comment so that they're getting paid no matter if they come on Tuesday and I'm billing residential
Right,
respite
right.
and HPC that, so yeah, cause that would make they're like, well, why do I need to go
Right.
on?
So what she's talking
We don't
about,
want any
everyone,
obstacles to providing service.
in our system, if you qualify for what's called a med assist add-on or a complex care add-on or behavior add-on, that money theoretically was supposed to go to the direct care worker who's providing those services. Because if I'm working with someone that has complex care, they can't turn over, all these things, I should be getting that additional money per hour. Remember what I said earlier about there's two different types of providers in our system. Independent bills directly, gets it automatically. You work for an agency, it's gonna sound bad, but not everyone passes on that full amount to the direct care worker, even though they probably should.
So we're passing out your due process
Yes.
rights. If you're denied a service, or if there's a delay, so sometimes you'll ask for something and 6 months later, you're still asking for something, don't wait 6 months. There's the process, you call a number, it rings into a Job and Family Services office on a state level. They won't know much about your dilemma, so don't spend a whole lot of time explaining things to them. You just have to say, my child's name is this is their social security number, and they were denied or delayed a service through the IO, the level 1, the self, and I live at, they will schedule a hearing. It's just this, administrative assistant that's collecting this data. They'll schedule a hearing, you'll get something in the mail or email telling you when the hearing is gonna be. Right now, they're through Zoom or Teams. The burden of proof is on the county as to why they didn't provide the service or why what you asked for was denied. You need to be able to provide evidence.
Yes.
It's not a court hearing, but everyone has to swear to tell the truth, the whole truth. You can bring witnesses. You can have statements from physicians. Things under our waivers no longer have to be medically necessary, but you have to be able to prove that it's a need to keep your child healthy and safe. And I needed it 6 months ago, okay? The evidence we can help you with, if you contact us, we can cite the rules, and it's a hearing officer. They like to see rules, where if your county says,
That's directed at me.
you can't do this because I said so, that's not enough. The biggest rule.
Did you look at me when you said
No,
rule?
I did not. You were bent over. I wouldn't look at you there.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. This is on live stream, man. Easy.
There goes the marriage.
Well, yes, I asked him if he was gonna have a stripper for his birthday. And he said,
Oh,
no.
my
I'm not gonna-
All right, so I'm gonna sidetrack you. Stop talking for a minute. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Things are very confusing. It's a very complex system.
Right.
You have a right to know what's going on with your loved one, right? So ask questions.
And the
Write testimony when rules open.
Are these all?
Make connections with your legislators, not just one time a year or one time every other year.
Get to know them.
You get to know them. They need to know your stories.
So when you're in the hearing is not, I used to say it's not a Perry Mason show, and I got told I'm too old.
It's like
not
story time with Uncle Gary around the fireplace.
It's a hearing, but it's very informal. You can ask questions, the county can ask questions. They'll have a ream of paper of all these rules. So you need to be able to, you tell your story, but you back it up with a rule. Most often it's a category called participant directed goods and services, which is available only on the level 1 and the self. But
Okay.
I want my kid to go to the YMCA, and they're saying, no, you can't do, well, here's documentation as to why.
Okay, questions?
Wait, yeah,
Ooh,
is
which
the
one?
handout on, are these handouts that you have
They
here?
are on the resources tab under the archivohio.org.
Okay, so that, and then what about modifications for home? They tend to keep quiet about that, or technology.
Okay, there is availability for what's called home mods on the waivers. The challenge has always been in our system finding a contractor to do those home mods who's willing to accept the rate. Our rates have always been, again, guys, state sets a Medicaid rate. The rates are not amazing all the time.
So if I'm on the level 1 waiver, I've got to do that.
Yes.
If I'm on the if I'm on the IO waiver, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I have to find a certified contractor, and they're hard
If
to
you're
find.
using PDGS under the other two.
But if I have
it's
a
little
level
different.
1 or a self, I can use a general contractor, but there's a limit of $10,000 a year. But if I need something that costs $20,000, I get it at where my one span ends and the next span begins, and then I can.
Is it a span or a calendar year?
You mean the calendar, so the next day is gonna flip again?
Yeah, right. There's a limit on the level 1 as
Okay.
to what I can do on participant directed, but call us.
No.
So there are rules under home modification. A lot of times, my kid has cerebral palsy. Our bathroom's on the 2nd floor. You can't put a bathroom on the 1st floor and have the waiver pay for it. It's a federal thing. You can't change the makeup of your house. Okay? They'll put a lift to get you to the 2nd floor, but they won't. Or you can't convert a dining room on the 1st floor to a bedroom and make it look like a bedroom. I mean, or a lot of times people will say, I'm gonna just turn my garage into a bedroom with an ensuite. No, we won't
That's
do
not
that.
the level 1, right? Or the IO?
Well, it's all of them. You can't expand the square footage of your house, and you can't change the makeup of your house.
Why? Why? Because we took our dining room, music room, and made Alyssa's bedroom.
But
and
did the waiver pay for it?
Parts of, yes.
Well, parts.
That's
Parts
key.
of it.
There's a way to do it. You
There-
just have to.
But they won't pay for closets because closets aren't necessary. They don't pay for doors because doors do not have to be necessary. So yes, you're right, they did pay for, we had to fight, but I will tell people this. Alyssa went to Woodlawn, which was rehabilitation. Those physical therapy people came out and said, this is what Alyssa has to have in order to live in this house. And then, because we specifically had professionals, and they literally did, they made measurements, they said how big her bench had to be, everything. Then the waiver paid for it.
So,
But they do it in modules, they didn't do it, so it was 10,000 here, 10,
right, yes. So they made the dining room accessible. The fact that she's sleeping there, in their eyes, didn't make it a bedroom.
Right.
Because they didn't put a closet in it.
we did.
I know,
You did.
you did, but see, it's the way you do things.
Yes.
You can't say, I'm gonna turn my dining room into a bedroom for my daughter. I wanna make the dining room accessible so my daughter can use it, and we'll figure out a way how to get a closet in it. And
No, we paid for the
yes.
closet.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So we
It's
did.
government.
We
It's-
did
yeah,
pay for
So
the
the
closet.
other craziness thing, we have a lot of young families that are building a house, and their kid has cerebral palsy.
Yes, if you
The
build it,
waiver will not put the toilet in that's an accessible toilet.
But,
You have to put a toilet in, and a brand new one, and they'll rip it out
to put it
and
in.
put an accessible toilet in. You have to build the frame for the door, and they'll rip it out and put a new,
I know. It's-
you know,
yeah,
that's on a federal level, it's
Yeah.
government. So with this, going back to the hearing, it's not face-to-face anymore, it's not a scary thing, just,
yeah.
we'll try to help. We can't always actually
Okay,
be
Becky,
there.
what do you got?
I got a question. Can I ask not to have a staff from another country because of them not being able to cook the foods that I eat?
No. Well,
That would be a tough.
you have to be able to, that's a hard one,
Yes.
because they've met the qualifications of being a staff.
Remember the
You have
words
to-
in the rule, willing and able.
But you have to be careful that you're not discriminating
Yes.
because they don't look like you. So, just,
Lots
you
of
know,
issues.
you can't discriminate based on race, color, creed, religion, sexual orientation.
But not cooking skills?
Well, if cooking, so, cooking, yeah, we have the largest Somali population in the country in Columbus. And there is a cultural difference of, I don't eat a hot dog every day. You know, I would go to due process.
Yeah.
And see what the hearing officer says.
Oftentimes, when these things are drafted and finalized, they're always not perfect, right? So then that's why we advocate for additional changes. When a rule opens up every 5 years, it's your opportunity to comment on that rule, make changes that are needed.
So my argument would be, cooking is an integral part of what this staff person has to do.
Yes.
And they don't know how to cook. They don't know how to cook American food. They can't cook because often our loved ones can't eat spicy food, or they have to have things chopped up. You have to break it down into what does the ISP say, and can they implement the ISP? So if I think it's a dumb rule that one of the qualifications is you have to be able to read and understand English. I grew up with a cousin who had cerebral palsy. I sit in the meetings and say, you have to understand cerebral palsy. You know, you have to be able to understand, or you have to be able to understand, I know some of you, your kids don't talk, but you understand what they said. You know, you need to be able to, I know more from body language and eye movement than I ever knew from what people said. You know, so we're working with them.
Well, I mean, I think part of that has to do with the fact that you're dealing with systems that are in English, and so if you're looking at that documentation,
Right.
you have to be able to read, write, and understand English to be able to serve that person who speaks. But it gets tricky, right? We've got people who
We've
speak
got a
Turkish,
family-
and it's like you can't. That
We're
staff has
working
to
with a
know
family
that.
now today that
So English doesn't
mom
matter.
and dad speak English. Their daughter was born in this country,
Yes.
but she only understands Turkish.
Yes.
Because that's what they speak at home. And they've
that
said,
person has to know that.
the staff person, or we have a family in Dayton whose child is deaf. It doesn't help to have someone come into the house that doesn't know sign language. Or I communicate using an iPad. The staff person needs to know the technology skills to use that iPad. You know,
And actually use them.
and use them. So we're in
That was for
people's
you,
ear
Mary.
all the time. I know it's late.
Okay.
Any other questions?
You're coming in March to talk about appeals.
Oh, yes.
Do you not remember that?
Yes, I got the calendar.
Yeah, so you're going to be coming up and talking about appeals and
Okay.
appeal rates and that kind of
And
stuff.
I'm gonna be in,
Kent.
again, and I'm gonna be somewhere south talking
Question.
about Social Security and
Connie.
Medicaid.
You talked, everything I'm hearing, 20 years for people that have a children inside the home.
Talk louder,
Talk,
Connie.
yeah, I'll repeat it.
Are inside the home. What about the group homes? What can be replaced in a group home? My son's
Well, I
taking
think-
a bath and the bathtub is broke. And it's
Oh.
just taped up, so how do they?
Okay.
That's a landlord issue.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah.
Yeah, so there's, because in most cases, the provider doesn't own the home.
Right, they're coming in
But
to
if they own
provide
the
the
home,
service.
so a person with a disability living in a group home has all the same tenant rights as anyone else. So if your landlord's not doing something, you file complaint with the city, or, and they have the same eviction rights. So one of the things people don't think about is a provider has to give you 30 days notice. But the
Well-
building has to give you more than 30 days, I mean, to actually evict you. They can give you 30 days notice for the actual structure, but they go to get to court to kick me out. And I have to have a lease, so does JJ have a lease? He should.
Yeah, they're leasing the house.
No,
but
no,
she
does
have a-
Who
JJ
signs
have?
that form, that residential adult?
Yeah, see, one of the requirements of a group home
They
is
gotta have, yeah.
that you're the guardian, so you should have signed a lease saying what his rights are and all of that. But
I
yeah,
mean-
the bathtub is a tenant issue.
Even the, you know, in the provider world, I'm supposed to give 30 days notice, but let's be honest about that. If I go out of business tomorrow, how can I really give you 30-day notice?
Right.
So it's theoretical, but
Right.
if I'm
So
closed and gone, what are you
if he
gonna do?
lived in an intermediate care facility, we would call the
Read this
Department of
one.
Health. If he lives in a group home,
And read
it's
this one.
the same thing that if you were renting a house or if you were renting your apartment and
Like 4
you,
inches.
it's the landlord. Yeah.
So if he wanted to get a toilet, like we were talking about earlier. So that
It depends. Renters can't usually modify the house.
Okay.
But it depends, you know, it depends.
Okay.
He might
Yes,
be able
residential
to.
respite is limited to
When he
52
fell in
hours.
the bathtub,
I know where to
and that's
go.
why
I don't know.
I said, I've never seen a bathtub break like that.
He
If you
broke
want,
it?
have her.
He broke
have
it.
her-
Oh, okay, so then it becomes his responsibility
I
to
think she
pay
lives
for
down
it.
by you guys. Here it is.
Oh, well, go.
Keeps going.
Go, but see, yeah.
So
if
tell
you
her
had a
to,
seizure and it
can
was
she
accidental,
hear
that
me
should be
now? Can these
homeowner's
people hear me?
insurance. You know,
I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's-
If they email that to me, I can
yeah,
answer.
yeah, no.
But the 52 hours of respite is
Yeah.
based on the rule.
Her whole thing is she's gonna be losing all those hours.
We're gonna be here, we're here a lot.
Have her email it
Just
to
want
us.
us here to
You,
talk to
if you get it, send it to me.
Yeah.
Are you gonna?
It's
talk
Tina
about the
Richards.
fair?
Yes.
Here
I didn't hear
it
it,
is.
I just looked around.
I think as you know, that I've been sending out information about the resource fair
Was I
that we're gonna be
not-
having
was
on
I not doing a good job being on
Saturday,
camera?
April 13th.
And you were fine. Nobody's asking for your autograph though.
Bringing people in. So, we're doing it from children